Over the next 12 months, renters are going to have more leverage than they've had in the last 10 years. And the thing is, most renters, they don't know it yet. And if you're thinking, yeah, I've heard about the whole rental market, I'm telling you that there is more to it, whether you're a buyer, renter, owner, or investor. The thing is, we have a pile of new rentals hitting the market at the exact same time that the entire pool of renters is actually getting smaller. And that combo is super rare. It doesn't actually happen very often, but when it does, some very interesting things happen. Is the pain with renting. For a long time, renting has been a bitch. You show up, you compete with 10 to 12 other tenants, you overpay, you try to paint yourself as this great tenant, and your landlord raises your rent year after year, and you're meant to be grateful for the spot that you have. But that is the result of what happens when demand outpaces supply. All renters, they chase available units, and landlords and investors, well, they love it. But recently there has been a change, and that's when they start to see some leverage. And that's what 2026 is shaping up to be, a year of leverage for renters. So what is actually happening? Well, there's two things happening at the same time. The first is there's a massive increase in supply. We've been talking about it for a while now, but our government has been very focused on increasing supply, specifically around rentals. The Globe and Mail published January 1st that this year, we're gonna have 180,000 purpose-built rentals under construction across the country. And that is a boom like we have not ever seen before, which is actually expected to increase rental stock by more than 7% once it is complete. And that surge, as we mentioned, driven by federal incentives, things like GST waivers, probably low interest financing, institutional investment, and really just government policy that favors rental over ownership builds. And the second thing is demand has started to cool down significantly. At the same time, we see a change in the federal government's immigration policy targeting temporary residents, which really are a lot of the people that drive up rental demand. You can think of international students and temporary foreign workers. And this combo is strange because as more rentals come onto the market, there are fewer people who actually need them. And what that means is landlords start to fight for renters' attention. So you can naturally derive incentives from that situation. And this has already started to show itself specifically with vacancy rates rising across the country in major markets. Vancouver specifically saw a 1.6% vacancy rate in 2024. And last year, 2025, it was almost 4%. And that's the highest level the city's seen since 1988. Calgary and Toronto both saw increases as well. The thing is, you don't have to memorize percentages. The point here is that the direction across the country is changing. There's a general trend, rising vacancy rates due to increased supply and much, much softer demand. So that is essentially the story. But what do renters actually get out of this, and why should renters care about a change in their situation? Well, with more leverage comes more options. Units sit for longer. Landlords are going to respond to you faster. They're going to want your attention, focus on your attention, and incentives show up. So whether that's a free month, free parking, reduced deposits, most importantly though, you can negotiate your situation. Rent prices, they're not just gonna crash all of a sudden, but what really the fundamental change here is the psychology around the whole process. I remember when I was a renter and it was all about, please accept me, I'm a great tenant, this is why I'm a great tenant. But this shift, this psychology change is more to a, well, landlord, why don't you convince me this place is worth whatever it is you want for it? And that shift for you, if you're a renter or a seller, or an owner, is massive. And the part of this that nobody really says out loud is this argument between renting versus owning. And this is where a ton of us get stuck. There is no real right answer. It's based on your situation. But in a lot of markets right now, it is more expensive to own than it is to rent month to month. And it's not necessarily because ownership is the bad or wrong idea. It's because with interest rates, prices, and condo fees, it all comes down to a simple case of, does the math actually work for you? So with rents softening while ownership costs typically stay high or are trending high, a lot of people will ask themselves, what's the point of buying right now? And the thing is, when rents do get cheap, the pressure doesn't actually hit the market the same way. What it does is it targets condos first, because condos, compete directly with those rental builds. Whereas detached homes, they just don't. And because the supply that is coming into the market is typically condo apartment style rentals, this is really an apartment story. And most of the market updates recently have been about how brutal the condo market is and how trapped those people who own condos are. Whereas detached homes, they're not competing the same way against a 1-bedroom rental tower. So if you are watching those market collapse videos, you're gonna notice that this is a trend that shows up in pretty familiar areas. Small condos, investor-heavy buildings, pre-sale assignment, and investor stock real estate. And the reason why this is relevant for renters is because it changes the very narrative of that conversation, especially renters who are first-time homebuyers thinking about renting versus buying. And the real danger in this is thinking that this scenario is just gonna last, because this adjustment is more than likely temporary. Even if rents do drop, it's not necessarily automatically the best idea to just wait it out. The reason is when this happens, developers start to pull back. Projects, they get delayed, they get canceled, or they just get stopped altogether. And now, you may have leverage now, but that may continue for 12 to 24 months. But as new supply starts to slow down and immigration possibly is reversed, what you find yourself doing is getting back into the situation that you're squeezed. So this year, 2026, renters are gonna have some leverage. That may extend into 2027. In 2028, we may start hearing about new supply slowing down. And then after that, we could be right back to square one. And all that means is if you're renting right now, 2026 might be a decent window for you. So what do you actually do if you want to take advantage of this window? Well, the first thing I would say is decide what is important to you. Are you trying to get a sweeter deal from your landlord, maybe some more flexibility for the next 12 to 24 months? Or are you a renter that is looking for their first primary residence? Are you looking for a home for the next 5 to 7 to 10 years? If you're renting and you do want flexibility, what I would recommend is use 2026 like a buyer uses a buyer's market, right? You can negotiate, you don't have to rush, you can adjust terms, and you can negotiate for stability. Maybe you go after a longer lease, maybe you go after a better unit, maybe you go after a better location. But if you're renting and you have your sights set on buying, don't just wait because the rent might drop. Instead, what you should do, contact your realtor, watch condo inventory, watch any big places that have major price reductions, and 3, get yourself ready to move when a deal makes sense for you. So yeah, you can call it a rental collapse, whatever it is, but the truth of the matter is there is a balance of power, and that is changing, that is moving. And if you're renting this year, you might finally have the advantage that first-time homebuyers haven't had in years. So don't waste it by just passively waiting around for a 10% plus drop in prices. If this video helped, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.